All right, so.
Welcome to Gish!
Oh, yes. Hello, everybody. Oh, I forgot that the room was shaking. So, all right. So, Shawn is going to reach into, pull out a Calvin ball. We will then know what our subject for this month's episode is. What do you got, Shawn?
Such a shtick.
Yeah. What do you got?
I'm working on it. You really...
I did.
You're like compressed.
I didn't
Were you
want...
trying to make diamonds?
Yeah. I was trying to make, what did you write?
Space Jam and us meeting Chuck Jones.
Because there's not enough content.
Space Jam and us meeting Chuck Jones.
Because there's not enough content on Ferris Wheelhouse of me talking about Space Jam. But I did realize, though,
Oh, yeah. I'm supposed to throw this at the camera.
Yeah, come on, you talk about shtick. You can make fun of the
missed!
You can make fun of the shtick if you actually do it. But no, we never actually had a real discussion about A, seeing the movie, and B, getting to meet Chuck. In fact, people that know the story about it at all know my version of it because you've never really talked about it. I've been telling people. My friend Shawn was there, and that's about it. I think you may have mentioned one or two things in commentaries that we did, but we've never actually had a real discussion about it and how cool it was. It's definitely a bonding moment. I mean, last month you were like, I hope we do something not when we were in high school, but of all the times that we had in high school, this is definitely one of the coolest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is up there with, like, getting laid for the first time.
Yeah.
And meeting my wife.
Yeah.
Those happen very close to each other.
But, so 1995 was when Space Jam originally came out. And,
Is it?
It's a 95, yeah.
I thought it was 97. No, 96. Let's ask the internet.
Let's ask the internet, even though
it's our new segment. Let's ask the internet.
Even though the Looney Tunes critic is right across from you.
Yeah, you know, I feel like 1996 is correct, and you're an idiot.
It's 95. That thing's wrong. Well, either way, I remember it being 95, but then
I remember it being 96,
you know what?
And the internet agrees with me.
Yeah, well, then that's not where you want to be in life. But either way, when we went to go see it. What happened?
I'm picking up the Calvin ball. It's my nice office studio place.
So the way Space Jam started was the Air Jordan ads.
Yes.
Do you remember those? Do you have any memory of them?
Not so much.
They're best left forgotten.
Yeah.
For sure. But I do remember distinctly seeing the first trailer for Space Jam and going, they made a movie out of those fucking Nike commercials?
I remember the 90s generally as a time where the Looney Tunes were having a huge resurgence, but mostly just in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
There was very little original content outside of like Carrot Blanca, which does have one real solid joke in it.
That's a couple, actually. But I think you know the one. Yeah, it's the... Okay, that's not the one I was thinking of.
Oh, it's... She's begging Sam, Daffy,
Right.
To play the song.
Yeah.
And he goes, fine. Bing! I
thought you never play that song!
Just the one note. And he zips in.
I love it, too. He gives a Chuck Jones glance to the audience like, all right. Boom. You know.
Yeah, that was the top joke for me.
The other joke that a lot of people like to recall from that cartoon is there's an actual sodomy joke in there because Sam puts himself in jail because Bugs is tricking him into thinking he's unrucked. He goes in jail, locks himself in, and then he looks over, and then there's a guy, a big burly dude, who's giving him the eye and kissy face, and Sam just goes ooh, and his eyes get really small, and then they cut away. But then there's...
Well, that's why they call him Yo, Sodomy Sam.
Yo, Sodomy Sam. That was a good one. I'm going to give you a fucking up top for that.
Thank you.
Good.
I remember Looney Tunes being everywhere in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't throw a rock blindly without hitting someone wearing some very awfully designed Looney Tunes shirt in that super generic, ugly style they had.
Usually Taz or Marvin. They were the two most popular.
Yeah, I mean, I had a extra large Marvin shirt because it was the 90s and our clothes were supposed to be big. Mm-hmm. So 5'3" me only wore extra large t-shirts.
You were swimming in a Marvin Martian tent.
Yeah, but if my arms ever got cold, I was set.
Yeah, right. But it was, and that there was the reason for that, just to add a little bit of context, the reason it was so big in marketing was because...
No, not the reason for the large clothes.
Right. Was for a number of reasons. Started by, in 1990 was Bugs's birthday, the 50th birthday. And that was a year of celebrating. And that was when the marketing was at its all-time high. And then like right after that, Tiny Toons came out. And that kind of kickstarted the whole Spielberg era of making TV animation great again. Or great. I don't know about again, but... and, you know, all these shows like Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, all these wonderful shows. And again, it was a resurgence for sure because the Looney Tunes were very often seen in cameos and were considered in canon, which is not a word I often usually use with Looney Tunes. But, you know, that's why they were certainly around. But
it's also weird that Tasmanian Devil and Marvin Martian had such a huge, like, following in the 90s, including me. Like, Marvin was my favorite character at the time. Both of them each have only 6 cartoons.
Yeah. Geez. I think you're right.
Yeah. In the original.
Yeah.
I mean, before Patty Freeling and all the garbage that came after that.
Yeah.
You know, the core Looney Tunes period, 6 cartoons each.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if the Patty Freeling or even the Seven Arts era was used any of Marvin, but I don't think so.
I don't think so. I'm sure they had plenty of Taz though.
Yeah. No, they were very they were stocking up on Speedy and Sylvester and then Speedy and Daffy cartoons. By the way, this is probably get cut out, but I actually found the cartoon. One of the rare moments in continuity in Looney Tunes, there is a cartoon that links the end of the Speedy and Sylvester era with the beginning of the Speedy and Daffy era. There's a cartoon where literally Daffy shows up to the...
Like Sylvester tags out?
Pretty much. Daffy comes to the door and Granny's like, oh, we got to get rid of this mouse. He's driving my cat crazy. And Sylvester's in the cage and he's all like shaky and stuff. And then from that moment on, there's no more Sylvester and Speedy. It's all Daffy and Speedy. So there actually is a weird kind of continuity. I don't know why I brought that up.
Well,
but anyway.
you know, the classic nature rivalry between duck and mouse is well established.
So anyway, so there was definitely, you know, the Looney Tunes were definitely around a lot more in the early 90s than they had been previously, with the exception, obviously, being when they were in production. Now,
I think the 90s in general.
I have a theory, and I briefly touched on this in my Space Jam review, but I've never heard anyone else say this or repeat it, and people do like to repeat stuff that I've posited in the Looney Tunes world. So I feel like either not enough people have heard this theory or they just don't agree with me. But I'm right. So I think that, do you remember this may only be local to Sarasota. I may be wrong, but I don't know how popular. Okay. We all know the fucking crisscross t-shirt with Taz and Bugs, right? Uh-huh. Did you see all of the others that came after it for the next 3 years?
Don't believe so.
For about 3 years after that, there were a shit ton, and some of them weren't official, a shit ton of hip-hop gear, you know, Looney Tunes shirts. And
I remember like all the like with their arms crossed and the chains and the like just like really problematic.
Yeah. They didn't do it with any of the characters that were brown. I noticed that. There was never any brown Looney Tunes characters in hip-hop gear.
I mean, Taz.
I guess Taz qualifies. We'll take all
but
that.
I mean, like, it was not even currently, at the time, relevant hip-hop.
No, that's
because
true.
it was like Flavor Flav, like with the big clock. And
I remember the Crisscross shirt came out like a year after Crisscross had disbanded, and had disbanded, and disbanded sounds like they were actually a band.
Yeah.
But still.
People had stopped jumping around.
Yeah, there was no more of that. In fact, I think David Bowie killed it with the song he put out in 93 called Jump, They Say.
Or jump. Yeah. People were no longer jumping. Jump Around is a different song.
It's House of Pain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really do think that the sales of those shirts are what led to the Hair Jordans.
Oh, yeah.
I think, and I really do think it was that simple. It was, well, the hip hop community loves Looney Tunes. What else is the hip hop
Who
community?
else is black?
Right. It's just
Basketball players.
It's that basic. I really do think it's that basic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no such thing as a sketch comedy show making fun of, like, executives that is too far. Like,
meaning that would be
no matter how much you caricature these executives that make these kinds of decisions, you're never going far enough. They're more ridiculous than your comedy can make them.
So in other words, if it was a sketch, and it was a sketch that they were doing these Nike ads because of the t-shirts that they saw, you would not get a note from the what was that?
I think it was a spring in this blind behind me. Let's see if it still works. Still works!
Yay! I completely forgot what I was talking about, though.
If it was a sketch.
If it was a sketch, yeah, that the scenario, no one would be like, would the execs really make that black and white or base of a conclusion? They wouldn't go, no, that's too on the nose. They might say, let's make them dumber. But they wouldn't go, that's too on the nose. You're right, because it feels exactly like what it probably was. The guy who is responsible, as far as the research goes, for it is a man named Jim Griswold, which I don't like to talk about too much because it implies that a man who is an artist by trade made this shitty idea.
May I posit a theory also?
Please.
I think that the Looney Tunes characters, not the Tiny Toons or any of those Spielberg things, but the actual Looney Tunes characters, I think that they had they'd fallen from the center spotlight of pop culture for so long that I feel like licensing them was probably relatively inexpensive. And so the people at Warner Brothers probably were handing out these licenses and were more than happy to let people do whatever they wanted to the characters as long as they were giving them money in return.
That's a good theory if this took place within the last 20 years. Then it would not be applicable. Then probably the most active portion of Warner Brothers that to ever give a fuck about Looney Tunes was the marketing.
Well, no, I mean prior to this, I think maybe they had gotten so cheap that everybody was able to afford to license them for their products, and then that caused the blow up because the blow up was just the marketing. Because where were the Looney Tunes in the 1980s?
They were on all manner of fucking marketing, but they weren't being. But they were on TV, but they weren't making new stuff.
Yeah, I mean they were just rerunning them on Saturday morning cartoons.
Did I point this out?
Bugs and Tweety show.
Did I point this out in our Roger Rabbit commentary? The fact that, so in Roger Rabbit, when Tweety comes out, oh, look, Pitties, and he looks like Clampett. That was a fight. A fucking knuckle fight. Because Warner Brothers wanted Tweety to be wearing a sweatband. And the reason why is because in 1987, their number one item, their number one item in 1987 was tennis gear with Tweety Bird on it. So like tennis skirts and tennis rackets and stuff that had Tweety on it. I don't know why Tweety never fucking ever played tennis in any of the cartoons. There's one cartoon where Sylvester uses him as a birdie in badminton, but no, Tweety, there's nothing remotely tennis about it. And marketing again was also pretty anal.
We're getting real off the topic here. What is our topic? Space Jam. Okay, yeah.
Space Jam and also meeting Chuck. But here's the thing. They also, Chuck comes into this story too. Because the other problem with the way the Looney Tunes characters look in Roger was on the one hand, it's Warner Brothers wanting everything to look like the marketing at the time.
Right.
The other is Chuck wanting it to look like the way he was drawing it at the time, which
is worse.
Was terrible. Yeah. I'll take those Daryl Van Sitter's, model sheets of the marketing stuff over Chuck at the time any day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, but that does a good job of, I think, setting the stage.
Chuck, 1988. What if every character looked like the Grinch?
But painted with a leaky marker or something, and there's crap all over it. Oh, my God.
So, yeah, I
No
broke
line
all my
control.
fingers, and I just taped this paintbrush to my hand.
There's all this stuff in his book about line control, and it's just like, how are you making examples, Chuck? Like, you need to draw old stuff.
Michael J. Fox has better line control.
Oh, yeah.
I say that with love.
Oh, God.
So much
I love him. So we go and see Space Jam, and this is at a time when we go to see Space Jam, and this is at a time when you and I are fairly well known at our local theater.
Yes.
Would that be fair to say?
To bring it back to Carrot Blanca, I believe there's a line from Tweety as Peter Lorre. The line is identical to the line in Casablanca. I believe it would be fair of us to look at any member of that theater staff and say, you despise me, don't you?
Yeah, they were not happy with us.
No.
And the worst part about it is that we, at that time, were in our Michael Scott phases where we thought they fucking loved us. Because they didn't tell us to our faces what fucking loudmouth shitheads we were. Because they couldn't. But
we were definitely loudmouth shitheads.
But if ever there was a time where we were at our loudmouthiest and shitheadiest, it was when we saw Space Jam in the theater. I remember the two of us walking out of that theater, yelling on top of each, like not talking to each other, yelling about the movie simultaneously. You're saying your shit, I'm saying, what the fuck was that supposed to be? We couldn't contain it.
Now, I don't recall my feelings going into it, but I kind of imagine that I was somewhat excited to be able to go see a Looney Tunes movie in the theater that crossed over with live action, even though I gave negative 800 shits about basketball or Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But, as a huge Roger Rabbit fan, going in expecting, hey, maybe something with that kind of magic, but with the Looney Tunes instead of this original character of Roger. Original. You say you remember. That is how I imagine my feelings would have been, having some hope for it going in.
If you had any hope for it going in, you didn't tell me.
Fair enough.
Or it wasn't on your face.
Also, it is worth noting this is at a point where we did not have a choice as to whether we would see a movie on opening night.
Yeah.
It just was something we did.
Right. That's
always.
True. And that was the other thing too. Even if we were the type of people who would not go see a movie on opening night just to do something else, even if that was the case, we weren't those type of that was what I remember very much is saying, we have to see it. We have to fucking see it.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to like it, but we have to see it.
Like me and the Snyder Cut of Justice League. I've been very meh about the whole idea all along. I've hated all those Snyderverse DC movies in the theater. And though I haven't seen it yet, as of this recording, I know I have to watch it. Mm-hmm. A DC superhero movie comes out, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Because, we grew up where you had to wait 3 years between superhero movies.
Yeah, that's
true. And now we live in a fucking golden age of superhero content. I am absorbing it. Mm-hmm. I don't remember who it was, but I remember someone saying you never know when you're living through a golden age.
Yeah.
I recognize that for comic book fans, this is the fucking golden age.
They're quoting Andy from The Office, like the last episode, because Andy was like, I just wish, that like you could tell when you were in the good old days rather than finding out after they're gone.
No, it was something before that.
What?
I don't know. I just said I don't remember who said it, but I remember someone saying you never know when you're living through a golden age. But it was something from well before.
Oh, I'm saying Andy said it on The Office as well. I'm not saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, so let's move on because we watched it. We annoyed I wasn't dating Chelsea then, so we were probably just in there, the two of us by ourselves. We didn't have a group of people with us. So we watched the movie. We were very upset about it. But then, probably 2 years later, would have been when my mom died. So my mom passed away of cancer, and her best friend was a woman named Marion Peters. Marion Peters, her husband is Mike Peters, the cartoonist behind the wonderful Mother Goose and Grimm, which is probably in your local newspaper today.
Also, worth noting, a Pulitzer Prize winning political cartoonist.
Yes. And also just one of the happiest people I've ever met.
Yeah. Mike Peters is just like wonderfulness distilled into a person.
What's weird about it, though, is that, like, if you were to observe him and you didn't know him, you would think it's insincere. And that's what's one, because it's so over the top. It's like, oh my God, how are you, you wonderful thing? It's been so long since I've seen you. How are you?
It's like being friends with a Muppet.
Yeah. He's so, but it's not until you realize that, oh, this is actually who he is. He is and cannot curb his excitement at seeing you. Yeah. He hasn't seen you in 5 minutes. It's like, oh my God, you look so great. He's one of the sweetest people.
Which is weird because, like, now just thinking about that, it seems like it would be exhausting.
Yeah, but it's only exhausting if you don't feel like it's real. You know, like my friend Anders is a little like that, where sometimes it's just like, dude, just stop. Just take it down. You're exhausting. I love you too, but calm down. But I've never had to do that with Mike.
Like a puppy.
Like Anders is a dog person through and through, like a puppy. But Mike's not like that all the goddamn time. It's like, I remember having real heart-to-heart talks with him, and the whole time he's not like, oh, you know what you need to do, but like, it wasn't like that. But
so fast forward to
my mother passing away. It would have been early February, like first week of February, 98. And we had her wake at their house. Now, you and I had been, this wasn't your first time at the Peters house. But the thing is, about a month after my mom's wake, we did as we were often doing, just driving around, and we're passing by the Peters house. Let's go see them. It was very natural to just
this was Siesta Key. Which you may know from the completely realistic MTV show.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
So Trevor lived on Siesta Key, and we would often go into the Siesta Key village. Mm-hmm. We would drive or walk. Mm-hmm. It was walkable from your house.
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun to sit there.
And on the way from Trevor's house into the village, you would walk within 30 feet of the Peters house.
Yeah.
So we would sometimes just drop by, and it wasn't, just friends of Trevor's parents there, because we went to school with Molly. Their daughter.
Yeah. So we knew Molly too, so we could go and see her, say hello, and
we could go and use wanting to see her as an excuse to see her dad.
Right. Yeah. But that was the greatest thing about them. I think only maybe like 2 times did I ever go to their house where I was like invited and it was like a thing. And I never knocked on their door to, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Never felt...
You never felt like you couldn't come by at a certain time.
You never felt like you weren't welcome.
Right.
They would invite you in like happily. And
do you remember?
You never felt like you were imposing.
That's right. And do you remember what we were talking about when Mike decides he's going to call Chuck?
I feel like...
Because we talk about Python a lot, so this is why I remember.
I mean, it was something to do with animation.
Sort of.
It was Terry Gilliam, maybe?
So, it was 98. So, that was Mike and Marion had just gotten back from the Aspen Comedy Festival. And they had met Trey and Matt and they were telling us about that.
Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the originators of South Park.
And this was also, after we did, like I'm trying to tell the audience again, what happened very often when you and I would go and visit, we would sit there and look at all the Chuck artwork because Mike was very good friends with Chuck Jones and had original artwork all over the house.
Yeah, and actually, just a little side note, all kinds of original artwork.
Oh, yes.
He had his Pulitzer on the wall, of course. He had
John Lennon.
He had an original sketch by John Lennon, like on a napkin.
At Apple. It had Apple insignia on it.
Yeah. And he had an oil painting of Bugs Bunny with a lady bunny, an unnamed lady bunny.
Right.
As a bride and groom that was a present from Chuck. They had, in Mike's studio, there were drawings of like political cartoons that other cartoonists would send around to each other that you couldn't publish in a newspaper. Right. There was one of
the Clinton one with
there was one of Bill Clinton where his nose was an erection and it said Clinocchio and had been drawn by Jeff McNeely from Shoe,
who had just passed away, I think, when you and I were seeing that. I think it was like a year after he passed.
I think he was still alive at that point.
Was he? I think his son was, or some ghost artist took over. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
But anyway, like that was a real cool thing, just seeing like these cartoonists sending shit. They like, I drew this, but I can't fucking put this in a newspaper.
The thing that I wondered about, though, to get back to Chuck, was that in Molly's room, the back wall, the white back wall for her couch was very, very high ceilings, like higher ceilings than the one I have in my basement in that room. And it was a Sharpie penned Wile E. Coyote Chasing the Roadrunner mural by Chuck. And I'm sure I asked, but I don't remember how the fuck that got into the house. Because I don't think Chuck Jones came to visit them with a Sharpie marker and was like, let me christen Molly's room. I don't think that's what happened. But it was, again, one of those amazing things about visiting that house. And you're just like, there's all this original Chuck Jones artwork. So, as was the case when we dropped by a month after my mom's wake, which was there at their house, we stopped by, and of course they're telling us about everything that happened. But eventually, the conversation devolves into talking about how great Chuck Jones is. And Mike, at one point, stands up like the Manchurian Candidate and just walks out of the room.
No, you're wrong.
That's not what I remember.
He stood up and bolted out of the room.
See, that's not what I remember at all.
Yeah, I remember him running out of the room because it left you and Marion and myself sitting. It was the little back, like, sort of closed-in patio area. And we just sort of, like, looked at each other like, okay. Because he didn't say a word. He just got up and ran out of the room.
See, that's the only thing I disagree with is ran. I remember him getting up and walking without saying anything. Which is my Manchurian reference, because he just...
And then we just, like, all glanced at each other.
But yeah, we were
whatever his speed was, we all glanced at each other and then shrugged and then went back into talking.
Yeah.
And we got, like, I don't know, another minute into our conversation.
Yeah.
And then Mike pops his head in and goes, guys, come on.
He yelled from across the house.
No, he came.
He did?
He came, like, he's like, come on. And then he started, like, running back down the hall. And then he stopped and turned around like a dog.
Okay.
Trying to get you to follow him.
Because that's what I remember is when we got into the office, he had his hand over the phone, cradling it, and he goes,
that's wrong, too.
That's totally what I remember.
No, we went in. Like, he ran ahead of us.
I called one of our friends. And then he puts Chuck on speaker.
I remember the phone sitting on the ottoman in the middle of the room.
Yep.
Where ottomans belong.
Sure. Just sitting there waiting for Dick Van Dyke to trip over it.
Exactly. I was just going to the Dick Van Dyke well. But yeah, I don't remember him I remember him like already having the red light on the speaker. And like that's why he ran ahead of us. And
without a doubt, we remember what happened next, though, don't we?
I mean, it's a blur.
Okay, let me specify. Without a doubt, we remember the first thing that happened.
Unfortunately.
We made smacked asses of ourselves in front of our idol. We carried on like a couple of giggling schoolgirls because we could not wait to hear what he had to say about Space Jam.
We knew that Mike Peters was good friends with Chuck Jones for all the reasons we've already laid out. It never would have occurred to us to say, hey, could you arrange for us to meet Chuck Jones in some way?
Part of it is because Mike was such a sweetheart that you feel guilty to ask him.
I don't know. It just never would have occurred. And you've pointed out to me, I did not have good manners back then.
Well, I mean, look who your mom was. I mean, she raised you.
Many years later, you told me, you would just, go in our fridge without asking permission. And I was like, what, really? And you were like,
open the door, grab shit, yeah.
And you were like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, can I call your parents and apologize now?
The one that amazed the shit.
Can we get a Ouija board so I can apologize to your mom?
The one time I actually told mom or dad about it, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, he went to the fridge, opened it up, grabbed himself a soda and said, do you want one? And I was like, shouldn't you be asking me that, motherfucker? I do definitely, that's true. I don't think it ever would have occurred to us to be like, hey.
But, I think what happened in that moment, if I can presume to get into Mike's head, because it was 7 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Or evening.
Yeah.
I think we were sitting there and Mike just went, oh, hey, it's 3 hours ago, California time.
Right.
And then ran out of the room.
Probably, yeah. He is very impulsive.
Yeah, I feel like it just occurred to him time difference, 4:00. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Time out for 1 second. We have the audio of us reacting.
Did I send that to you?
You did.
You do have it? Good.
I do have it.
You know what? Let's do this. Why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, you'll hear audio of us that we recorded to tell our friend Shell that we had just met Chuck Jones.
Yep.
The instant we got home to Trevor's house.
Yeah. I'm amazed we didn't crash. I'm amazed that I was able to drive home at all.
It's hard to drive when you're vibrating.
Dude, I'm when you hear this audio, we are.
So, this is embarrassing. This is.
As if the podcast itself wasn't. We named it after a sound effect.
I've listened to this audio recently.
Yeah.
And
we're making noises more than words.
Yeah.
Or scents.
For real. We sound like if a muskrat were ticklish.
Yeah.
So listen to these fine ads and promotions. And when we return, that thing.
Yep. All right, so welcome back. I hope you enjoyed those ads. And now, as promised, here is what we actually sounded like minutes after meeting the late, great Chuck Jones.
Guess what? We just talked to Chuck Jones. Okay, it's April 2nd right now. 1998. We just told you online.
On the internet, we just...
But you couldn't hear this. This is how we were typing. Just like that. That's like... He talked to Chuck fucking Jones. He talked to Chuck Jones.
But yeah, we did kind of embarrass ourselves right away.
Now, can you imagine, though, if that's what we sounded like afterwards?
Yeah. What we sounded like while talking to him?
Poor guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, what I know about Chuck Jones now, having appointed myself the Looney Tunes critic and really, learning more than anyone really ever should about this kind of stuff. Chuck was... what's a nice way to say it? He loved people. He was
very old.
Chuck was in his later years very old. No, Chuck loved anyone who loved him. So as goofy and ridiculous as we sounded.
Well, it's because they had something in common.
Yeah. Well, but also Mike is part of the reason
he loved
too.
himself.
I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
But Mike also loved him and loved us, and that's part of what also had to do with it too. Is that it wasn't like we were meeting him at a book signing. This is very much, hey, what are you doing? I got some friends over here.
Yeah. And he probably did say that we were friends.
He probably also said one of them's mother died of cancer and it's Marion's best friend, so don't be a douche. How great would that be to see Mike Peters tell Chuck Jones to not be a douche?
Right.
I don't think douche is even in Mike's vocabulary.
Now, Chuck, we know this kid because his mom was Marion's best friend. She died of cancer, so can you just not be a fucking douche for once?
And
hey, guys!
And he loves Bob Clampett. I know.
I don't know. I feel like at the time you probably loved Chuck more than Bob.
Probably back then. I mean, if not, I was definitely becoming more of a Clampett fan. But also, that was around the time that Clampett's cartoons were just becoming more in the mainstream and in the know because it was that pre-48, split up of the network stuff versus the cable.
Now you're pouring even me. So we met Chuck Jones. When we hear who it is on the phone, we immediately, Wayne's World style, dropped to our knees and started bowing and saying, "We're not worthy."
I forgot we did that.
Oh, that's the thing that... Well, you thought that we embarrassed ourselves and made smacked asses of ourselves, and you forgot that part?
Well, it's not like we would fight. Like, why did we think he would know what Wayne's World is?
I don't think we did. I think that
we were that ignorant.
I think
not only we knew he wouldn't care, it wouldn't know, and we didn't care.
No, I think that we had an involuntary reaction. We got into a headspace where we understood Wayne and Garth at that moment.
Yeah.
And we felt genuinely unworthy to be in the telephonic presence of the great Chuck Jones.
And I have to say, I don't want to speak ill of the dead. I want to say that people say that all the time. You never meet your heroes because, there's always a good chance they're going to be themselves. And I've since learned that Chuck was not a good person.
Yeah, I've learned that about literally every one of my idols.
But he was amazing to us. He was amazing to us.
Except Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, yeah. But Chuck was genuinely amazing. He knew that these kids are meeting Chuck Jones.
Yeah.
So put it on.
And, kids in the 90s who know who animators from the 40s are.
Right.
Has to be pretty rare.
Yeah, it was. And, he was definitely everything you wanted him to be. And right down to, okay, so I've said this many times when talking about this, but I want to say this here because it's really important to me that what was so cool about it was the first legit question before pulling Wayne and Garth was, what did you think of Space Jam? And
I think that was after Wayne and Garth.
Yeah, it was, but I'm saying it was the first legit question. We're not worthy is not a legit question, but it was the first legit.
You said before pulling a Wayne and Garth. We
legit asked the first legit question we asked was, what did you think of Space Jam? And what I remember is he's just said, I thought it was terrible. And the reason
it was terrible.
The reason we were so happy about that was because, and I think you may have been the one to really put a fine point on this. It was that Chuck was very good at, if he was upset about something, he put it in a very classy way. And the example that I think you specifically cited was when he was given, speaking of Robin Williams, when he was
his honorary Oscar,
right,
which was presented to him by Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm. And so in that thing, Robin does a hell of a send up. Then they play the clips of cartoons,
which was it was all based around the Dot and the Line, one of his MGM cartoons after he left Warner Brothers.
And it's a cartoon that, while most Chuck Jones fans love it, us included, Chuck had a very bad experience with it, and he was not proud of it at all.
And he got up to the mic and he said, "What can I say in the presence of such
humiliating evidence?"
Humiliating evidence, yeah.
And that was, to the average person, that's like, oh, that's funny, haha. But to him, that's the fucking down the line.
Yeah.
Really? That's okay.
That's what they picked.
But instead of going up there and saying that, he says something classy. So we figured,
and we'd read 2 autobiographies from the man, watched countless interviews with him, documentaries galore. Like we We would go to the Ringling Museum of Art library, where I had an account, and just get every fucking animation video we could find.
Yep.
And just devour it. Like the best selection of pre-internet animation history resources you could find, pretty much.
Yep.
And so we knew the kind of things he said publicly.
And
for him to just...
The other thing I remember before he said it, what I remember thinking specifically was, if there is any good about Space Jam that we didn't see,
he'll let us know.
He'll let us know.
Also, I remember going back to when we watched Space Jam, we didn't leave as soon as the credits started. We watched the fucking credits.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was kind of our practice back then.
Well, yeah, generally speaking. But also, we paid attention to the credits, because I remember one of the things that I was shouting at you as we were leaving was...
While I was shouting to someone else.
was there was no fucking mention of Chuck Jones. No. You have the greatest living animator, we thought at the time. He was the last of the directors left from the classic Looney Tunes at the time.
Died a few years before.
94, I believe.
Yeah.
But, which, I mean, would have probably been in the midst of making it. But for Chuck Jones to not have been involved in the movie at all, we thought was iffy. And that meant that we had no idea how he felt, because he clearly wasn't involved.
Since we knew, even then, we knew as far back then that he had been involved. We didn't know the extent of it, but we knew he had been involved as a consultant on Roger Rabbit. So why wouldn't he be involved in this?
Right. And then, so, we'd had that question. We'd wondered, I wonder what Chuck thinks of this. And we had our opportunity, without any preparation, to ask him that. And he said, oh, it was I can hear... Of the entire conversation, the one thing I can still hear clearly in my mind's ear is...
Clear as a bell.
Is Chuck's exact intonation on how he said that.
And I thought it was terrible.
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah.
I thought it was terrible.
Oh, well,
it was a declarative statement.
Oh, it was terrible.
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And then we burst into celebratory
we lost
cheering.
Our shit.
And I recall
he said,
him chiding us. He said, well, do you want to just celebrate that I agree with you, or do you want to hear my reasons? And then we settled right the fuck
Which is
down.
weird, because the answer was both.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did.
Yeah, we were like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, we were so relieved.
We would have been so upset if Chuck Jones was like, oh, that's a great, fun movie. And I love that he felt like he could be candid with us about this.
Yeah, because we didn't start off by saying, oh, we love Space Jam, blah, blah, blah. We were like, so what did you think of Space Jam? That was the first mention of Space Jam.
If you meet someone like that at a signing and you ask them that, the first conversation I ever had with Stephen King was The Rage Carrie 2 had just come out.
I remember that.
And I was like, so what did you think of this Carrie 2? And he goes, it's pretty good. And the second conversation I ever had with Stephen King was, why did you make me watch that movie? And that's the kind of thing where, Chuck Jones very easily could have been the diplomat in that moment and given us some horse shit. But he didn't care whether we were fans of it. And judging by how people love that fucking piece of garbage now, it seems like that, statistically speaking, was more likely to be the case. But he was going to speak his truth, and he was candid, which seems, and I'm only just now realizing this, but it seems like a big deal.
Yeah.
That he was able to be candid with a couple of teenagers about how garbage that fucking movie was.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, he didn't take any time to process what our take on it would have been. And we didn't tell him either.
We gave no hints about how we felt about it.
Now, there is a very, I think, definitive end to the story.
Oh yeah, he died.
Was the fact that a very handy little piece of information. This is, again, you said Chuck was mad. And as we learned once we got off the phone with him, he had every right to be mad at Warner Brothers for that film, not just for it being bad. There's now a very well-known piece of trivia about Chuck and Space Jam that has even been on the likes of Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And it is because of the two of us and that night.
It's you.
Well, either way, I was trying to be gracious. But it's
because of our shared experience.
For sure.
And you having put that experience on the internet.
Yes, as the Looney Tunes critic. And so...
No, as the Boo Tunes blog author.
I think the only reading that anyone ever read of that was when they realized that it was the guy who did the Looney Tunes.
No. I looked it up, Trevor. I looked up the... Well, say the tidbit, and then we'll go back.
Okay, so the tidbit is... So when we get off the phone with Chuck, Mike and Marion tell us about how when they were promoting the movie and it was still in theaters, there was a press conference. And again, this is pre-internet. Well, I mean, it's not pre-internet, but it's pre the internet having such a hold on everything. It's like a media conglomerate and all that other stuff. And a media
it's
giant.
Before the .com boom and crash.
Yeah, but I mean, the internet was around. As evidenced by this, the Space Jam website, which is still up.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the only cool things about the movie. I think it's cool that it's still there. I'm not...
The website from 1996.
Yeah, I think that's cool, actually.
Keep in mind, this website put out by a giant media conglomerate.
Yeah.
This is not like some dude making this site in his basement.
Right.
This is the utter apex of the internet in 1996.
More to the point, it's not like Wayback Machine and they're like, no, it's go to spacejam.com. It's still there.
It's still there.
Right.
But also, it is the perfect example of the absolute height of web design in 1996.
Yeah. So, so they tell us, again, this is huge press conference. Every journal,
no, it was like a
newspaper
a dinner for like the animators at the studio or something. It wasn't a public press conference because then everybody would know about it because
the press was there. Part of the whole thing is that the whole story was that Warner Brothers had to pay through the nose a bunch of different press people to keep quiet about it. Because I remember you and I several times, in the months ensuing after that, we're looking constantly for something in the news about Chuck getting escorted off and da-da-da-da. And then,
which you're getting ahead of yourself.
But Mike did say, he may not have said that night, but he did say that a lot of press was there, and that's why they were so mad at Chuck.
Right. But, okay, you're talking about a thing that you didn't say what it was.
Okay, sorry. So Chuck. So anyway, bunch of people there, and it's that's the other big thing. It's on the fucking set, right, like where they made the old cartoons in the animation department. So it's this big, they're feet from where the Roadrunner was created, right? And they have Chuck going up to basically say, at gunpoint, thank you for honoring what we made and the work we did, and I'm the only one left, but I can tell you all my director brothers, and we would love this, and blah, blah, blah. And Chuck was honest. He went right up there, told the truth, and mid-sentence, fucking Ralph from security came up and grabbed him and threw him out. And then they had to,
escort him off the lot. And this was right after he had received a position as a lifetime appointment.
Yeah.
As a member of the animating team or something.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
A complete bullshit, title that they never had any intention of.
Yeah. But it was, the lifetime appointment as the ambassador of animation or whatever it is. It's the same thing that Marvel did with Stan Lee.
It's a bullshit title for someone that you want to go
It's an honorary title.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the story. And then I later looked up where else this was online, if anywhere. And I found quite a few articles discussing this. And they all linked back either to the article on the Bootoons blog or to another article that linked back to an article on the Bootoons blog.
Bloog.
Yes. And
these are pre the the video that I did?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think I did this research when I heard it as a piece of trivia on Wait, Don't Tell Me. So a question on Wait, Don't Tell Me came directly from knowledge that you, Trevor, put into the world.
So if we play a teensy clip of the Wait, Don't Tell Me question in this, is it going to be a problem for Fandom Limb?
I don't know. But I also don't know if I'd be able to find that episode.
I have it. I made a video out of it.
Oh. Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it.
I'm not going to fucking pass up the opportunity to brag that my shit was on NPR.
You know what? I'm going to take it this way.
Okay.
The P in NPR stands for public.
That's true.
It is publicly funded radio.
Yeah.
So I do believe that we own all the copyright on that.
We own everything NPR's ever done.
It says public. It must be public domain.
All right. Well, when I get home tonight, I'm just going to re-upload all of the Garrison Keillor Lake Wobegon stuff I have because I know I can.
Well, he got me too, so it might not do well for you.
Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Fucking Shay was talking about that. He put his hand on a fucking lady's shoulder, for the love of God. Anyway.
Yeah, but it was her bottom shoulder.
Oh, well then, that's a completely different.
That would be a butt.
All right, everybody. Do you have anything else you want to add? Oh, I have a question. I have a perfect question, because I don't even know when this is going to come out, so this may not even get used. Are you going to see Space Jam: A New Legacy?
Yes!
Yes, you are. It's a trick question.
I don't know why.
Because I'm going to make you, because we have to watch it together.
Yeah.
For content. Honestly, dude, this is, you might...
When does it come out?
In June. You might think I'm fucking with you, but...
So it's out?
No. It's not June. Well, yeah, but... The thing is, honestly, dude, I legitimately do think that if I put out a video where I watched Space Jam and you weren't in it, people will be like, "Where's Shawn?" I do. Enough people know that you were around for the Space Jam and all this stuff, and the Space Jam. Jesus, how fucking old am I? Remember the Space Jam?
All these kids and the Space Jam they're doing.
These kids, they're eating the Space Jam. They're spreading it on their space bread. Kids of the future.
It reminds me when I was working at the movie theater many years ago. I was talking to this old guy that was doing some painting there, right? And at the time, I was working the 2 full-time jobs. I was working 80 hours a week. And, you know, this is the 2000s.
Yeah.
This is the 2000s. And he's like...
So is this.
I mean, the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Just to give you I don't know if people think that I'm 70 years old. But closer to that than not that. Wow.
Yeah.
I lost it. So we're talking to this
two jobs.
This old guy, right? And he's like, you know, these kids these days, they just waste all their money on the Pac-Man and
Is this a real guy?
Yes. He said
on the Pac-Man?
On the Pac-Man.
Pac-Man had been around for 30 years at that point.
Yeah.
Was this one of the regular guys that we're always seeing around there?
No, it's some old dude that was there. Like, I think we were repainting like those railings in the auditoriums or something. His name was Bob. I remember that. And the Pac-Man. He didn't even say video games and put the Pac-Man as an example. The Pac-Man was enough.
The Pac-Man represents all video games.
Yes. These kids, they're wasting their money on the Pac-Man.
They are. 25 cents for a game of that shit. Bye.
We met Chuck.
It's true.
I did a freeze frame.